Hey there, folks. Buckle up because today's tale is going to turn your understanding of existence and the afterlife upside down. It involves a guy whose brush with death turned his life beliefs inside out and unveiled some jaw-dropping truths. Imagine transitioning from being a committed Muslim to finding new faith in Orthodox Christianity after experiencing the harrowing sights of hell. It's a journey that's hard to fathom. Stick around as we uncover what really happens post-life and how it might just shift your way of thinking. If you're not subscribed yet, make sure to do that and hit that notification bell so you can catch more transformative stories like this one. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and share it with anyone who might be curious about the truth. Now let's get started. I'm Amir Khan, and let me take you back to when I was a devoted Muslim for 51 years. I lived by the principles of Islam without question, praying 5 times daily, observing Ramadan, you name it. The pilgrimage to Mecca was a milestone I cherished, but everything took a drastic turn when I passed away. Yes, you heard that right. I actually died. In those fleeting moments between life and death, I encountered things that completely shook me. Now, before jumping into that remarkable experience, let me share a bit about my earlier life. I was raised in a close-knit, loving family in a small town in Bangladesh. From a young age, my parents instilled in me the values of Islam, and I embraced them wholeheartedly. I memorized vast sections of the Quran, dived deep into Islamic law, striving to follow the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad. As I matured, my faith only strengthened, and I gained a reputation in my community as a pious individual, the kind of person others admired. I would lead prayers at our local mosque, organize Quran classes for the youngsters, and deliver talks on various Islamic themes. I took great pride in my dedication and truly believed I was firmly on the path to paradise. I also married a remarkable woman, Sarah Naeem, and together we blessedly welcomed 3 beautiful children into our lives. We nurtured them in our faith, just as our parents had done for us. Life was fulfilling, and I felt lucky. However, as I neared my 51st birthday, something began to gnaw at me. Despite my unwavering faith and seemingly good deeds, there was this unsettling emptiness within me. I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but I sensed something crucial was absent. At first, I tried to brush it off, thinking it might just be the onset of a midlife crisis. In search of inner peace, I dove headfirst into my religious practices. I thought that through prayer and acts of kindness, I might find relief from the emptiness that consumed me. But despite my efforts, that feeling remained, stubborn and unyielding. Then came a moment that completely transformed everything for me. It started like any other day. I woke up early, eager to begin my morning prayers. While I knelt on my prayer rug, focused on the direction of Mecca, an intense pain shot through my chest. At first, I dismissed it, assuming it was just a bit of indigestion. But as the discomfort intensified and radiated down my left arm, panic crept in. I called out for Sarah, my voice barely a whisper. She rushed in, and her expression instantly shifted from casual to alarmed when she saw me struggling. "Heart attack," she muttered under her breath, frantically reaching for her phone. The minutes that followed were a blur of anxiety and pain. I could hear Sarah's voice, filled with urgency, relaying the situation to the emergency operator. My children peered into the room, their faces etched with worry, and I longed to reassure them, to let them know I was okay. Yet, the words were stuck in my throat, swallowed by the sheer agony and helplessness I felt on the floor. A wave of fear washed over me, not only for my life, but also for the uncertainty of what lay ahead. Doubt started creeping in, making me question everything I believed in. What if I was mistaken all along? Just then, the paramedics arrived, their presence a whirlwind of activity. They wasted no time, connecting monitors to my chest and giving me oxygen while I lay there helplessly. I overheard snippets of their conversation, terms like critical and immediate intervention echoed in my ears, and I realized how dire the situation truly was. As they loaded me into the ambulance, I caught a fleeting glimpse of my family's faces, panic written all over them. Sarah was trying to remain composed, but fear flickered in her eyes. My kids were crying, seeking comfort in their mother, and I desperately wished I could tell them I loved them. I wanted to reach out, but my voice wouldn't cooperate. With the sirens blaring, the ambulance raced through the streets. The paramedics were working frantically, trying to stabilize me, but I felt myself slipping away. The pain in my chest intensified, each breath becoming a monumental effort. Closer to the hospital, everything started to blur into darkness. Sounds became muted, as if I were submerged in water. A peculiar sensation enveloped me. I felt as if I were floating, detached from my body, as if I were drifting away from the world I knew. The last thing that crossed my mind was a prayer. It wasn't directed at the familiar figure of Allah. Instead, I found myself reaching out to an unknown deity, and then everything slipped away into darkness. When consciousness returned, I was surprised to find myself not in a hospital or an ambulance, but in an unfamiliar, vast expanse. It was pitch black, completely silent, and the overwhelming void made me feel disoriented and afraid. Was I experiencing death? Was this truly the afterlife that people often talked about? As I stood there, grappling with confusion, an unexpected relief washed over me. The chest pain that I had battled moments before had vanished, leaving me in a state of surprising comfort. Glancing down, I anticipated seeing my familiar clothes, but instead noticed a faint outline of myself glowing in the darkness. "Hello? Is anyone here?" I called out tentatively, but my voice echoed back at me, met only with silence. Panic began to set in. This wasn't at all what I had envisioned. Where was the judgment I had been taught to expect? Where were the angels meant to review my life? Everything I thought I knew about death and its aftermath seemed entirely wrong. With every passing moment, I felt more lost and helpless, oblivious to the transformative journey that lay ahead of me. Little did I know, I was about to transition from the shadows of my old beliefs to the illuminating promise of a new understanding. This experience was going to completely redefine everything I believed in. As I lingered in that overwhelming darkness, a small spark of light caught my eye in the distance. It was tiny at first, almost like a distant star. I wondered if it was just a trick of my mind, but the glow grew stronger and larger, beckoning me closer. Without even considering the implications, I felt compelled to move toward it. The closer I got, the more intense the light became, yet it was gentle on my eyes, enveloping me in an embrace of warmth unlike anything I had ever known. Suddenly, I found myself completely surrounded by this brilliant light. It was so dazzling that I couldn't see anything beyond it, but rather than fear, I felt an overwhelming sense of peace. The light radiated an energy that seemed alive, suffused with an all-encompassing love. It was as though I was enveloped in an unmistakable warmth and acceptance. In that moment, I understood I was in the presence of an entity far greater than anything I could have imagined. This experience was not like the abstract notions I had once held. It felt deeply personal and astonishingly real. And then, quite unexpectedly, I heard a voice. It felt as though the voice surrounded me entirely, almost seeping into my very being. It was unlike anything I'd ever felt. Firm yet soothing, commanding yet tender. "Amir," the voice called, sending a rush of excitement through me just by uttering my name. "I am the way, the truth, and the life." Those words struck me with incredible force. They were vaguely familiar, but in that moment I couldn't quite place them. What I did know was that they resonated with a depth I had never experienced before. "Who are you?" I managed to ask, my voice trembling. "I am Jesus Christ, the Son of the living God," came the reply, and I was taken aback. Jesus? But I considered myself a Muslim. I believed in Jesus, but only as a prophet and nothing more. Yet, here I was, enveloped in his presence, overwhelmed by a profound sense of love and tranquility that I had never encountered. "But I'm not a Christian," I protested, stumbling over my words. "I've been a Muslim my whole life." His response was filled with warmth, but also an undeniable assurance. "I've known you all along, Amir. My love for you has always been there. Now it's time for you to discover the truth." As he spoke, a series of vivid images flashed through my mind. I saw the nativity scene in a humble stable, Jesus teaching the masses, healing those in pain and performing miracles. I even witnessed his crucifixion and astonishing resurrection. It was as if these events were unfolding right before my eyes. The scenes then transitioned to breathtaking churches adorned with golden domes and elaborate icons. I observed men in splendid robes, their serene faces guiding congregations through services thick with incense and prayer. The crowd crossed themselves and kissed the icons, their faces glowing with reverence. "What's happening?" I asked, captivated yet slightly overwhelmed by the sheer beauty and mystery of these visions. This is my church, Amir, Jesus explained. The Orthodox faith, which has preserved my teachings since the days of my apostles. Confusion washed over me. I had heard murmurs about Orthodox Christianity, but had little understanding of it. But Lord, I replied hesitantly, I thought all Christian denominations were the same. No, Amir, he clarified gently. This tradition safeguards the true faith, unchanged since the times of the apostles. It's the path I wish for you to follow. As he spoke, a sense of clarity enveloped me, similar to putting together a long-missing puzzle piece. The reverence and beauty I had witnessed resonated deeply within me. You've been searching for me your whole life, Amir, Jesus continued. Did you even realize that your search was for me all along? That emptiness inside you, it was your soul yearning for its true belonging. His words hit me like a bolt from the blue. It was true. All those years spent in worship, countless prayers and good actions, and yet I had never felt truly fulfilled. But standing there with him, I experienced a sense of completeness I had never known before. Curiosity got the better of me, and I asked, what about faith? What about the teachings of Muhammad? At this, Jesus' expression grew serious. Amir, many have strayed due to misleading doctrines. It's time for you to uncover the truth. Suddenly, the comforting light around us vanished, plunging me into utter darkness. A suffocating stench of sulfur filled the air, accompanied by distant, haunting cries. My heart raced with the horrifying realization that I was witnessing the depths of hell. As my eyes adjusted to the shadows, I spotted a figure in distress. Moving closer, I could hardly process what I saw. It was Amir Khan, the revered prophet I had admired throughout my life, tormented by demons. I felt a compelling urge to look away, yet I was immobilized. Amir's face contorted in agony as he pleaded for mercy, but it was clear that none existed, just perpetual anguish. Why is this happening to him? I managed to whisper, overwhelmed with sorrow. Why is he here? Because he misled many away from the righteous path, Jesus responded, his tone thick with grief. He rejected my divinity and my sacrifice. He spawned a deceptive faith that kept countless souls from discovering the truth. The scene was unbearable. I watched as the demons relentlessly mocked Amir, taunting him with reminders of his false teachings and the lives he led astray. But he did impart so much good, I cried out, seeking some sort of justification. What about his lessons on charity, prayer, and goodness? Without faith in me, those deeds won't suffice, Jesus said softly but firmly. I am the sole path to the Father. No one reaches the Father without coming through me. As his words sank in, I became aware of other tormented souls surrounding us. Some were familiar figures from history, while others were complete strangers, yet they all had one thing in common. They had turned their backs on Christ and led others to do the same. This is the destiny for all who forsake me, Jesus lamented. But remember, Amir, this outcome is not what I desire for anyone. I sacrificed myself so everyone could have the chance at eternal life. My love is boundless, but acceptance of that love is essential. Before I could respond, the scene morphed yet again. As I stood there, enveloped in a warm, loving glow, I couldn't believe my eyes. Heaven unfolded right before me. It was more breathtaking than anything I had ever envisioned. The colors sparkled with brilliance, the harmonies floated with unmatched beauty, and the joy surrounding me exceeded anything I had experienced on earth. Everywhere I looked, people from all corners of the globe, different nations, cultures, and languages, were worshiping Jesus. The expressions on their faces radiated a happiness I'd never encountered before. Among this divine crowd were saints I recognized: St. John Chrysostom, St. Basil the Great, St. Gregory the Theologian, along with many others, leading the heavenly praise with their angelic voices. At that instant, I understood that this was everything my soul had craved for so long. This deep communion with God was the very thing I sought, but had never found in my previous faith. This is the gift I offer you, said Jesus gently. This isn't just for you, it's for everyone who believes in me and becomes a part of my church. Here is the home I've prepared for those who love me and abide by my teachings. As I soaked in the splendor of heaven, memories of the terrifying visions of hell flooded my mind, and I felt my heart shatter. All this time, I had been misguided. My devotion and good deeds were built on a shaky foundation. Overwhelmed by the enormity of this understanding, I fell to my knees. "Lord Jesus," I cried out, "I believe in you. Forgive me for the years I turned away. Save me and guide me to your church." I sensed his hand resting on my shoulder, and a wave of love and forgiveness enveloped me. In that moment, I knew salvation was mine. All my sins and years of confusion were wiped away by his grace. "Welcome home, my child," Jesus exclaimed with joy. "You'll have a journey ahead to learn and grow in the Orthodox faith, but I'll be beside you every step of the way." Just then, I felt a gentle tugging as the magnificent scene began to dissolve. Distant voices echoed my name. "It's not your time yet, Amir," Jesus told me. "You need to return. There are many who need to hear the truth you've found today." "But I don't want to leave this place," I objected, tears welling in my eyes. "I will always be with you," Jesus reassured me. "One day you'll return for good. But until then, you have work ahead. Seek out my church, immerse yourself in its teachings, and share its truth with others." With those final words, darkness enveloped me again. I felt myself plummeting, and when I opened my eyes, I found myself lying in a hospital bed. Beeping machines surrounded me, and worried faces looked down at me. Sarah was there, holding my hand, tears streaming down her cheeks. My children were there, their faces a blend of fear and relief. "He's awake!" Sarah shouted, drawing the attention of a nearby doctor who hurried over. "Mr. Khan, you really gave us a fright," he said while checking my vitals. "You were clinically dead for a few minutes. It's a miracle you're back among us." A miracle indeed. They had no idea what I had just experienced, nor the profound insights I had gained. As the doctor continued to assess my condition and recount the events leading to this moment, my thoughts raced back to what I had undergone. I had crossed over, glimpsed both heaven and hell, met Jesus, and felt a calling toward the Orthodox Church. How on earth was I going to explain this to my loved ones and those around me? I knew that opening up about my experience would be daunting. Some might dismiss me, and others could even turn against me. Yet there was no way I could remain silent. The truth I had uncovered was too vital and life-changing to hold back. Lying there, still recovering but driven, I realized I must find a way to share what I had seen. With a fresh resolve, I made a silent vow to embrace the Orthodox Church wholeheartedly. I wanted to dive deep into its teachings and spread the word about Jesus Christ to anyone who would listen. His love, his sacrifice, and the promise of salvation were messages I felt compelled to share. My transformation from a devoted Muslim to an Orthodox Christian was just beginning, but with Jesus guiding me, I felt ready to tackle the challenges ahead. The light of his love had reshaped my former beliefs, leaving no room for retreat. As I spent my days in the hospital, I had a lot of time to ponder what had unfolded. The memory of my moment with Jesus lingered vividly, along with unsettling visions of Muhammad in hell and the breathtaking experience of Orthodox worship in heaven. I felt an urgency to communicate what I had witnessed, though I also recognized the risks involved. My family was struggling to understand my altered perspective. Sarah had picked up on the fact that I no longer performed my Islamic prayers, and the kids were puzzled when I began discussing Jesus and asking about Orthodox churches. Initially, they thought it was the aftermath of my near-death incident messing with my mind, but soon they started to sense that something significant had changed. "Amir, what happened to you?" Sarah asked me one afternoon, a worried tone in her voice. "Why are you talking about Jesus and this Orthodox stuff? We're Muslims, remember?" I took a moment to steady myself, fully aware that the discussion ahead wouldn't be easy. Looking at Sarah, I began softly. "Sarah, my dear, I need to tell you something life-changing. I've encountered something profound. Jesus came to me, shared his truth, and welcomed me into his church." The surprise in her gaze was unmistakable. "Oh," she exclaimed, and I could see her reflexively whisper a prayer for Allah's mercy. "Amir, are you joking? This cannot be real. It's blasphemous." I countered gently. "It's not blasphemy, Sarah. It's the undeniable truth. Jesus is the Son of God, and embracing his church offers real salvation. I even saw Muhammad in torment, suffering for misleading others." Instantly, I felt I had overstepped. Sarah recoiled from my words. Her expression was one of sheer disbelief, and she hurried out of the room in tears. I could hear her weeping as I stood there, and my children were equally taken aback. My eldest, Tariq, shot me a look filled with both confusion and anger. "Dad, how can you say this? You raised us in Islam. How can you abandon everything for this foreign faith?" It was heartbreaking to witness their pain, but I had to stand firm in my experiences. I understood this was a lot to process, but I wouldn't waver. I had found truth in Jesus Christ and his teachings, and I felt it was important to share this with everyone. The weeks that followed were incredibly tough. News of my conversion spread like wildfire. Friends vanished, phone calls stopped, and even my family began to pull away. I was branded a traitor, an apostate, and worse. The local imam visited, trying his best to persuade me that I was just lost and that I had fallen into Satan's trap. Yet my faith in Jesus was resolute. I was determined to join the Orthodox Church. As my health started to improve and I prepared for my exit from the hospital, a realization hit me hard. I couldn't return to the life I once had. Leading prayers at the mosque or teaching the Quran was no longer possible for me, and I couldn't feign belief in something I now regarded as untrue. On my discharge day, Sarah was there, ready to drive me home, but the silence in the car was thick with tension. Eventually, she spoke up. "Amir, I can't grasp what's happened to you, but I cannot stand by this. You must reconsider and return to Islam. Otherwise, I'm not sure I can stay." Those words pierced me, but I had anticipated such a reaction. "I love you, Sarah," I replied. "I can't ignore what I truly believe. I hope one day you'll come to see it and embrace this beautiful faith with me." Once we returned home, the atmosphere didn't improve at all. The warmth and affection that once radiated from our family space had faded, leaving it feeling stark and unwelcoming. The Islamic art and symbols, which used to bring me solace, now appeared hollow and devoid of meaning. That night, as I tossed and turned, struggling to find sleep, I found myself whispering a prayer to Jesus. "Lord," I pleaded softly, "grant me courage, guide me toward your church, and open my family's eyes to your truth." In that moment, an incredible peace enveloped me. I recalled the comforting words of Jesus, "I will always be with you." It struck me then that, regardless of what lay ahead, I was not alone. The following morning, I set out on a mission to locate an Orthodox church. It was quite the challenge in a largely Muslim nation, but eventually, I discovered a small Russian Orthodox mission on the fringes of the city. A flutter of nerves mixed with excitement coursed through me as I prepared to attend my very first divine liturgy. Walking into that church, I was immediately captivated by its inherent beauty, the vivid icons, the aromatic incense, the harmonious chanting. It felt foreign, yet oddly familiar, like a scene from a dream that lingered just out of reach. As the service commenced, tears welled in my eyes. With tears streaming down my face, I realized I had found it. This was the glimpse of heaven I had envisioned. This place felt like home. After the service, I struck up a conversation with Father Sergei. I shared my journey, half expecting him to think I was losing my mind, but he listened with a warm gaze that radiated kindness. "My child," he replied after I finished, "God operates in mysterious ways. He has drawn you to his church, and we embrace you wholeheartedly. However, the path forward might be challenging. Are you prepared for what lies ahead?" I nodded, a whirlwind of fear and resolve swirling within me. "Yes, Father. I understand it won't be easy, but I'm convinced this is the truth. I'm eager to learn all about the Orthodox faith." Father Sergei smiled at me reassuringly. "Let's begin your catechism then. There's much for you to explore, but trust that God will guide you along this journey." And thus, my adventure into Orthodoxy commenced. Every spare moment was dedicated to the church, immersing myself in the faith, attending services, and preparing for baptism. The profound teachings, rich traditions, and deep spirituality of Orthodoxy began to fill the void I had felt for ages. Yet, even as my new faith blossomed, the situation at home grew increasingly strained. Sarah and I barely exchanged words, and when we did, it often led to heated arguments. It was tough navigating the new dynamic with my children. They seemed to shy away from me, unsure how to bridge the gap with this transformed version of their dad. The defining moment arrived when Sarah finally confronted me. With a trembling voice, she laid out her feelings. "Amir," she said, "I'm really trying to understand, but it just isn't working. You need to abandon this Christian idea and return to Islam, or I'll leave with the kids." My heart felt shattered. The love I had for my family was immense, yet I couldn't turn my back on Jesus and the church, not after experiencing the profound connection I had found. "Sarah," I managed to respond, suppressing the tears, "my love for you and the kids is beyond words, but I can't reject Jesus or this church. They embody the truth and the path to salvation. I hope one day you'll understand and share this beautiful faith with me." Just 2 days later, they were all gone. The house that once echoed with laughter was starkly silent now, an empty shell. It felt like everything I held dear had slipped through my fingers, my family, my community, my past life. Yet, in the midst of this overwhelming sorrow, I sensed the comforting presence of Christ, granting me strength. I dove headfirst into learning about Orthodoxy. Father Sergei became more than just a guide. He was a friend who stood by me during this transformation. Each lesson deepened my understanding of my faith, the Holy Trinity, the Incarnation, the rich meanings behind the Divine Liturgy. Each piece of knowledge felt like reclaiming a part of myself that I didn't even know was missing. After months of catechism, baptism day arrived. When I stood in the baptismal font with Father Sergei reciting those ancient prayers, I was enveloped in a profound peace. Emerging from the water, I had taken on the name John, after Saint John of Damascus, a steadfast defender of orthodoxy. It felt as if I was truly beginning anew. The following months were a blend of challenges and uplifting moments. I experienced a degree of isolation from my Muslim friends, battling feelings of loneliness, yet I also discovered a deep joy in nourishing my newfound faith. I committed to attending services and observing the church calendar's fasting. Learning the Jesus prayer became a daily practice. One day, while tidying up the church post-service, Father Sergei approached me, wearing a pensive look. "John," he said, using my baptismal name, "your journey is remarkable. Have you considered sharing your story with a wider audience?" I hesitated. "I've thought about it, Father, but I'm apprehensive. What if this puts me at risk? What if it leads to more problems for my family?" Amir Khan listened intently, clearly picking up on my worries. "Those are completely understandable concerns, my son," he replied. "But think about the impact your journey could have on others. How many Muslims like you might be seeking the truth without even realizing it?" His perspective struck a chord with me, reminding me of my vision where Jesus had revealed a mission for me. "You're right, Amir," I admitted slowly, "but where do I even begin?" We sat together and tossed around some ideas. We decided that I should start by writing my complete story down. Amir offered to assist me in refining it and translating it into Bengali for the church's website. We also mapped out a few talks where I could share my experiences with the local Orthodox community and anyone else interested in hearing. Crafting my testimony became quite an emotional journey as I reflected on my near-death experience, my encounter with Christ, and my path to orthodoxy. I relived every moment, sometimes needing to pause as the memories washed over me. Once I had finished my testimonial, we shared it on the church's website and various Orthodox forums, and the reaction was overwhelming. Messages flooded in from around the world, connecting me with fellow converts and lifelong Orthodox believers. It was inspiring to discover Muslims curious about Christianity, but not all the responses were friendly. Soon I began receiving threats from extremist groups who viewed me as a traitor. Thankfully, Amir and the church community rallied around me, providing support and safety. There was a strong pull within me to bridge the gap between the Muslim world I once belonged to and the Orthodox Christian faith I had embraced. As my story spread, invitations to speak at Orthodox events rolled in, allowing me to share my experiences, answer inquiries about Islam from an Orthodox perspective, and help the church improve outreach efforts towards Muslims. About a year after my baptism, I received a message that truly stunned me. It was from my eldest son, Muhammad. He mentioned that he had come across my story online and it prompted him to reconsider everything he had believed. He expressed a desire to meet. Our reunion was filled with emotion. Muhammad had countless questions, and we ended up talking for hours. By the end of our heartfelt conversation, as tears streamed down his cheeks, he asked if he could have a meeting with Amir to learn more about the Orthodox faith. "I'm sorry, Dad," he murmured after we finished praying together. "Listen, I really regret how I treated you and not hearing you out sooner," I said. pulling him into a warm embrace. My heart was full of happiness. "You don't have to apologize, my child. I'm just so thankful that God has helped you see the truth," he replied. Fast forward a few years, and I watched in awe as God worked miracles in my life. My story was translated into multiple languages, reaching Muslims around the globe. I began sharing my journey at various conferences, where I not only recounted my experiences but also taught Orthodox beliefs to those in the Muslim community. It was a challenging road, filled with persecution and threats. I often found myself longing for the comfort of my past life. Yet, every time I witnessed someone embracing Christ or received encouraging messages from readers whose lives had improved, I realized it was all worthwhile. Then, 5 years after I had that near-death experience, I learned that Sarah wanted to talk. She had read my story and was eager to meet. Honestly, I was anxious. I didn't know how it would go. When we finally met, my heart sank. Sarah appeared older and more worn, but there was something in her gaze, an unfamiliar softness. "Amir," she said, her voice trembling slightly, "I think I want to know more about your faith and about Orthodoxy." With tears in my eyes, I began to share the depths of Christ's love and the beauty of the church with her. As I spoke, I saw that flicker of hope in Sarah's eyes reminiscent of Ahmad's. By the end of our conversation, she expressed a desire to meet with Father Sergei for catechism. We had a long journey ahead, filled with healing and understanding, but slowly, our family began to rediscover each other, not as Muslims, but as Orthodox Christians. Reflecting on the journey God has led me on, I'm in awe. I transformed from a devout Muslim to an Orthodox Christian, from being a respected leader within my community to facing hardships as an evangelist. I went from a sense of loss with my family to witnessing them embrace their faith. Through it all, God was by my side. I understand my purpose isn't finished. There are still many Muslims who need to hear about Christ and His church. But fear has no hold on me anymore. I've experienced the truth and felt God's overwhelming love through Orthodoxy, and I truly believe that in the end, Christ's love wins. My name is John, once called Amir Khan, and this is my testimony. How I faced death and saw Muhammad in hell, but more importantly, how I discovered Christ and found genuine life in His church, a change that has made all the difference. Reflecting on my transformation, I can hardly believe how much I've grown in recent years. It all started during a near-death experience, which revealed to me profound truths that continue to resonate deeply. Now, my life is intricately woven into the fabric of church life, filled with the rhythms of fasts and feasts, along with the beauty of the divine liturgy. The traditions I immerse myself in truly are the lifeblood of my existence, constantly reminding me of the richness of Orthodox faith and theology. My daily prayer routine has undergone a significant evolution as well. The Jesus prayer, "Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me, a sinner," has become a comforting presence in my life. I find myself reciting it during various activities, whether I'm out for a walk, engaged in work, or settling down for the night. It's a grounding practice that keeps me tethered to Christ throughout the day. Additionally, diving into the writings of the Church Fathers, such as St. John Chrysostom, St. Basil the Great, and St. Gregory Palamas, has opened my eyes to a deeper appreciation of God's love. Icons have emerged as another gift along my journey. Coming from a background where worship through images was frowned upon, I initially approached them with caution. However, thanks to Father Sergei's insights about their role as windows to heaven, I've started to see them in a new light. Now my small apartment is adorned with icons, and I find great solace in praying before them. Yet, it hasn't all been smooth sailing. I still face challenges, particularly from my former Muslim community. There have been moments of confrontation on the streets and a barrage of threatening messages online. In those tough instances, I remind myself of Christ's teaching to pray for those who hurt you, keeping even my adversaries in my thoughts and prayers. On a more positive note, my engagement with the Muslim community is evolving, thanks in part to the support of my bishop. I've initiated a small ministry aimed at fostering dialogue between Muslims and Orthodox Christians. We produce literature, organize workshops, and extend a hand to those curious about our faith. One of the most rewarding aspects has been witnessing fellow Muslims find their way to Christ. Each baptism I attend takes me back to my own journey, filling my heart with gratitude for the grace I've received. And it's not just been my journey. My family's move toward Orthodoxy has been a precious blessing as well. Once Sarah began her catechism, our younger children eagerly wanted to be a part of it too. It's been a wonderful experience to see them embrace this path alongside us. I'm Amir Khan, and my journey is still unfolding. There was a time when I navigated the complexities of Islam, but then Christ stepped into my life, revealed the truth, and embraced me within his community. Reflecting on my experiences, it's remarkable to observe how my children are growing in their faith. Their eyes shine with joy when they partake in Holy Communion, and their voices lift in song during hymns. It fills my heart in ways I struggle to define. But let me tell you, it hasn't all been smooth sailing. As they adapt to living as Christians in a predominantly Muslim society in Bangladesh, they faced hurdles, loss of friendships, some teasing at school, and the challenges that come with such monumental changes. It hasn't been easy. Yet despite these trials, I've witnessed their faith blossom beautifully. On my end, I'm diving deeper into theology. Thanks to Father Ahmed's support, I've embarked on formal studies. The more I study, the more I'm reminded of how much there is to discover, and just how profound and intricate this faith truly is. Serving in various capacities, be it reading during services, lending a hand with charity, or tidying up our church, brings me immense joy. Each little act feels like a heartfelt gesture of love towards Christ. Looking back at my Muslim upbringing, I can see how God took steps to prepare me for this path all along. The emphasis on prayer, following his will, and leading a moral life. These elements of my earlier faith were like guiding lights pointing me towards the revelatory truths I now embrace. Admittedly, there are moments when I feel a twinge of sadness reflecting on the years spent in what felt like spiritual obscurity, particularly when I think of the struggles my family endured during my conversion. However, I find comfort in the wisdom of St. Paul, reminding me that God orchestrates every facet of life for good. It reassures me that my experiences, however challenging, have been part of a greater plan, and I find gratitude for this incredible journey. As I write this, I'm gearing up for an exciting speaking tour across various communities throughout the country. I'll be sharing my story and exploring effective ways to bridge connections with those of the Muslim faith. This responsibility weighs on me, and I'm earnestly seeking God's guidance as I prepare. The transition from Islam to Christianity has imparted countless lessons, but the most significant one revolves around the astonishing depth of God's love. The God I've come to know isn't distant or detached. He's a nurturing Father who became human for our salvation and continually reveals himself through his church and sacraments. While the future remains uncertain, I find solace in knowing that regardless of what lies ahead, be it happiness or heartache, ease or difficulty, Christ will accompany me, and that certainty alone is enough to carry me forward. I find myself appreciating the new chapter of my life each day, all thanks to him. Truly, all glory goes to God for the blessings I receive. If my remarkable transition from Islam to Orthodox Christianity strikes a chord with you, why not spread the word? Hit that like button, subscribe, and don't forget to ring the notification bell so you can stay updated on more uplifting stories of transformation through Christ. Share this video too. Maybe someone you know is on their own search for truth, and your simple gesture could spark the beginning of their journey to complete faith.